Welcome to a new episode of the Team X podcasts powered by Rosenthal Coaching. Today we will discuss how to manage conflict within a team.
Hello, I'm Steluța Leu.
And I'm Gabriel Trandafidescu.
We are professional coaches working with leaders and their teams to unleash their superpowers and maximize results. If you're new to our podcast and channel, make sure to follow us and get notified whenever we go live. So, what are we covering today? Conflict is inherent in a team, and dealing with it generates distress for new and experienced team leaders alike, regardless of industry, geographic area, age, gender, or any other characteristic. When driven individuals come together, tensions occur from time to time. Conflict can be beneficial or it can be damaging to a team's dynamic, having a huge impact on performance. How to lead a high-performing team towards results through these moments and how to manage conflicting teams is the topic of today's episode. And here is what we're covering today: the myth about team conflict, disagreement, and consensus for achieving results, the one thing leaders need to understand about conflict and dealing with it, and the fundamental shift of perspective that leaders can make when it comes to team conflict in order to successfully manage it and have peace of mind. And if you stick with us till the end, we'll also be sharing a team exercise that can help team leaders practice leading their teams through conflict. So welcome everyone. Thank you for tuning in. If you're watching us live, make sure to type in the comments below where are you watching us from. Even if you're watching us later, do that. It would be really interesting for us to see where our audience comes from. And without further ado, let's dive into today's topic, Gabe.
Yes.
Let's start talking about team conflict. What is team conflict, right? And how does this affect a team's performance? Because we love this topic.
Yeah. So I would describe, there are many definitions, of course, for team coaching, but I would describe conflict within the team as the phase where a disagreement goes into, let's say, overload, like something that should be a constructive disagreement and exchange of opinions, different opinions, goes into something which is not really helpful at all. And that's because this type of conflict usually goes into the personal type of approach where the subject of the conflict, it's not the issue anymore, and the issue is actually different power plays and dynamics within the team that are not beneficial at all, and it's just within that conflict where they just appear from beneath the surface. So it's not about the conflict anymore, quote unquote. It's just about naming things and putting blame on the other ones and all the other stuff, which is never beneficial. Whereas the constructive conflict comes when the team can keep the discussion about the issue at hand and about the things that they can work upon to progress and to achieve better performance. And regardless of whoever is involved, or regardless of who is to blame, or for putting that discussion on the table, because that's not the issue. The issue is to make it work and to move forward. And this is where about moving forward is about the things that you mentioned in the beginning about consensus and disagreement, and how to move ahead in spite of that.
Thanks for clarifying that. So just to make sure that I understood correctly, and to reflect what I'm hearing you saying, is that there are two types of conflict, two big types of conflict within teams, right? It's the functional type of conflict in which people argue about tasks, about um, due dates and stuff like that. And there is the kind of a personal, what is called a personal or a dysfunctional conflict that has to do with blaming, pointing at each other. And this is the type of conflict that is not constructive at all. So you mentioned consensus, and we promised people that we're going to be talking about this and dismantle the myth about needing to have consensus in order to achieve results. So how do we mitigate conflict? How do you deal with conflict, with disagreements? And do we need to have consensus in order to be a high achieving team, in order to achieve high performance? Because this is, I remember that you did actually a poll, you surveyed our community on LinkedIn, and it was really interesting to see the results. So let's talk about that.
Yeah, and I would say thank you for the question. Actually, the answer is within your question. So, and the poll that we conducted is reflecting that. So, consensus is not needed to move forward, because consensus would mean that everybody agrees with everything, right? Consensus, which is almost never the case, but is not even necessary. I would say, on the contrary, it is not desirable to have consensus, because progress is made only when there are different perspectives shared, and when the team can learn from them, and instead of debating in a way that you put down the other one's perspective and opinion, you learn from it and you make them work together and as complementary instead of competing opinions. And so, first of all, consensus is not needed in terms of moving forward from a conflict into constructive disagreement. Consensus, I would say, is needed in terms of fundamentals, like the values of the team and the beliefs and their goals, the team goals, and their overarching um, uh, uh, vision, and all the other stuff which is fundamental for the team to exist. There, you need to have consensus, because otherwise, you would always have an unhealthy tension within the team. But in terms of operational perspectives and disagreements with the different tasks or projects or um, strategic decisions or tactical, it doesn't matter. You don't have to have consensus, and it's just a waste of time to try to reach consensus instead of moving forward with different opinions who could be complementary, or take, pick and choose from everything, so you can have a diverse range of perspectives.
Okay, so two things that I wanted to add. So you mentioned having that there needs to be consensus in regards to one of the things is team goals, and we have a video on team goals, and we're gonna post the link to it somewhere here. And you also mentioned earlier team dynamics, right? And I think this is really important because in team coaching we work on the team dynamics. And how does a manager, a people leader, a team leader learn, or what are the tools, or how can a team leader and a manager, a people leader, influence the team dynamics when it comes to a conflict? Because this is a topic that we talk about quite a lot between us in our team. So it's really
Yeah.
interesting to share with people and understand this perspective.
Yes, of course. And this brings us actually to the second point of our episode today, which is the leader, and not only the leader, but I would say especially the leaders, because they set the tone for the whole team dynamics perspective, can easily, I would say, adjust the team dynamics, flows by developing and deploying always a direct and open communication uh, mode of operating. After all, so everything, it might sound very simple, but sometimes the simplest solutions are right there in your face, and we just don't see them. But in this case, it's the same. Like, direct and open communication is I would say, the easiest and simplest way to bring up all the power plays which are unhealthy and which build into the conflicts and fuel the conflicts in a bad way, and put them out there and resolve them via direct and open communication. And if the leader does that, of course, all the team members would eventually follow.
Yeah, what I wanted to add is that even if it's the simplest and it sounds easy to do, it's actually one of the hardest because
Mm,
as human beings we are, and I'm sure that I'm not the only one, and we've seen so many managers and so many people that we are working with, uh, we are afraid of conflict, right? For some reason, because of various biases that we have, because of various experience that we have, because the potential negative impact that we think conflict might have, we are afraid of addressing conflict, even if it's not an open conflict and we see it bubbling underneath. We see that dynamic as a team leader. For us as coaches coming from outside, it's even easier to see that dynamic when we see these power plays at play. Even if it's not an open conflict, we are still, as human beings, we're afraid of going and addressing it. So if it sounds easy and it sounds like the simplest no-brainer idea to address this openly, it's actually very difficult
mhm,
because as leaders, we need, first of all, to overcome our own fears and doubts
mm,
and to learn to change the the behavioral habits that we have in regards to conflict, because we are talking about changing also behavioral habits in everything that we're doing in coaching, and leaders who need to develop also some coaching skills are
mm,
doing the same thing. They're changing their behavioral patterns early as leaders. So don't get fooled, guys, by the fact that it sounds simple and it sounds easy. Try to, if you're in a relationship and you have a conflict or with someone, try only thinking about openly talking about that conflict with the person that you are in a conflict with, and you will see that it gives you a hard time to do that. I think there, so far I've seen only very few people are able to openly and freely address conflict without having any issues. And it takes time and it takes practice. And as I said at the beginning of our video, if you stick with us till the end, we're going to give you an exercise that will help you practice this uh, behavioral change, talking about um, a possible conflict and aligning everybody together to fight this possible conflict. So,
yeah, I would like to add to that uh, it is not easy, because I would say, because of two major causes. One is the biases that you mentioned. So a bias is inevitable. Everybody has hundreds, maybe, of biases, and leaders, as other human beings, have them too. So first of all, when this open and direct communication approach is to be deployed, and this means everything should come out, right? All the dark, the dark sides of the team dynamics should come out when you have this direct. And of course, when that happens, uh, it's not an easy task to facilitate and manage. So some leaders could be afraid about that. And the second could be that. um, it, it's about the ego as well, right? When these dark things come out, they also hit various areas of the egos for the leader and also other team members. So it must be, like a very strong decision to make this happen. But when it does, you pull out all the infection in the team and all these bad things that are lurking over there, and you give them a chance to clear and to be solved. So the more often you do that, the healthier the team dynamics will be, because you don't let them, stay there and develop like a, like a viral infection that just keeps spreading, because you take them out and you solve them as they come, or as they our viewers will see at the end of the episode, as a common practice.
And I think another thing that you guys need to see when you're dealing, and when we're talking about conflict openly, and we're dealing with it openly in your team, you set the stage and you create a safe space for everyone to express themselves and their opinions freely. And this can only bring positive results, because one of the things we are looking to do in teams in order to move forward is to innovate, right? You can only innovate by getting out of your comfort zone, by bringing new ideas. And if you create that safe space for your team to be able to move through disagreement forward, and I think that's the whole thing that you need to have in mind moving forward, I think this sets you up for success as a people leader, as a team leader. Now, if you have any questions or any comments in regards to whatever we've just shared with you, we'd love to see them. Type them in the comments below. Uh, Otherwise, we're gonna move into our third point of conversation today, which is the fundamental shift of perspective that leaders can make when it comes to team conflict in order to successfully manage and have peace of mind. And I love this because I learned to do that very late in my life, and I learned to do that through coaching. And I was one of those people who were sitting in the middle of the conflict and who were taken by the
Mhm.
storm, and it was really heavy to go through a conflict for me. So when I learned this shift of perspective, and I need to give credit to Gabe for that. He taught me that things really changed for me when it comes to learning to accept that people have different opinions, and it's okay to be like that, and to hit heads also. It's like, even if we have a disagreement, even if it's not comfortable, if you shift perspective and you do what Gabe tells you to do, it changes things. It changes the dynamic in your team. So what is that fundamental shift of perspective, Gabe?
Yeah, I love that, because, as you mentioned, it's a skill, and it's not something you are born with, because this is not, programmed inside our operating system. It's like many other social skills and relational, um, you know, approaches that we gather as we get more mature and have more experiences. Is something that it's you need to practice, and as you did, I did the same. So I also learned it very late in life, and I spent probably well over 40 years not knowing this kind of shift, and this much healthier way of managing conflict and acting within a conflict. And this is, again, like many other things, a very simple shift, but it's about getting the issue outside, stepping up, it doesn't. It depends on how you look at it. Stepping outside of the issue and looking at it from the exterior, and having all the other members of the conflict alongside and not on the other side of the table. So it's a, if you will, the easiest way to look at it is a geographic shift. So as you well know, we have several other frameworks within our team coaching where the geographic and spatial shift in the team dynamics is shifting the entire workings of the team, and this is one of the same. So when you look at the conflict from the outside and you make it, for example, you write it down on a sheet of paper, and you actually put all the details of the conflict and everything that you think that are within the conflict on that sheet of paper. And not only you, as let's say the leader who wants to bring this out, but also all the other team members can come and contribute and write on the same piece of paper their own perspective about that conflict. And you have like an actual piece of paper with everybody contributing on it by describing the conflict, by describing their feelings, their thoughts about the conflict, and everything that they can put on that sheet of paper. And you put it in front of the team. And all the team members that are involved in that are looking at it from the same side. It's a very powerful shift in perspective and in consequently in the team dynamics about, hey, this is a conflict which is exterior. It's not, the conflict is not made of us. It's something external. We are on the same team and we are solving this. We are not the conflict. The conflict is as described on this piece of paper. And we are working together, looking at it from the same side, on the same bench, on the same side of the table, and the conflict is in front of us and we are just working on it. So this again might seem like a simple exercise, but it's very powerful. And as you know, many teams have worked with us through this exercise, but you can do it on your own, of course, like many other things. As a leader, you can put this on the table and do it on your own. However, when we support teams and facilitate this type of exercise, we can deploy other things that we have as tools.
Yeah, thanks for sharing this exercise. I think people need to understand that it is indeed very powerful. And Gabe not only told you which is the shift of perspective, he also gave you the exercise that we were talking about. So it's, I loved what you said, probably the comparison that you made with everyone sitting on the same bench. It's like, imagine yourself, if you're a sports person, imagine yourself and your team being on the same bench and having the conflict, which is written on a piece of paper in front of you, as the adversary that you need together to work against. And this is something that, again, changes the behavioral patterns within your team, works with the underlying dynamics of your team. And writing everything down, as Gabe said, people's perspectives in regards to that conflict allows actually for all team members to feel seen, heard, and understood, and that their opinion matters. Because in teams, you see that there are various people. There are people who are more vocal and they have no issue expressing whatever they're thinking, their opinions and everything. But there are also people who are more of on the quiet side of behavior, and they don't talk much. And there are people who are also afraid of conflict, so they don't want to intervene, even if they have their opinion in regards to the specific topic that is on the table. So working through this actually allows space for everyone to bring their input to that. And there was another thing that we wanted to add to this exercise. Besides having everyone writing their inputs, their thoughts on the conflict in itself, ask every one of your team members or to come with 5 reasons why solving this conflict is beneficial for your team. So 5 reasons why this solving the conflict is beneficial to your team. And we would love to hear from you guys if you're giving this exercise a try. And this is something that we use in as a framework in our coaching toolkit. If you're giving this exercise a try, let us know how it works for you. We would love to hear from you, because for us, what we're doing, and with the podcast and with the coaching, we're doing our best to support as many managers who want to turn into leaders, as many new managers, and as many also experienced managers and people leaders, to have as many tools to become successful. So this is what we're trying to do here, and this is what we're trying to do with this podcast: provide as many tools from the team coaching tool box for you to become more successful in your job. Now, there is another tool that we wanted to talk to you about, and this is something that I think it is really important, because we all have various perspectives, right, about how our team works, how the dynamic is, how we're doing. And actually, the most important thing is to also understand your team's perspective on how things are going on, and how they're perceiving, your team members are perceiving what's going on in your team. And this is a tool that we at Rosenthal Coaching have, which we call it Team Coin. It's because it's probably I think it's one of the best ways to move forward faster in improving your team's dynamics and reaching success with your team. Is an assessment tool that we provide for organizations in order to be able to measure their team's perception on how things are going on. So do you want to talk about TeamCoin just for a few minutes before we go off live, Gabe?
Of course. And thank you for that. I would just like to, before I go into that, to add to what you said about how leaders can deploy the exercise we just mentioned. And I would want to share an additional secret of ours, that for that way of getting out everything that's underneath the surface to work better, and be ahead of the conflict potential. What can work, and we had this type of results with the teams that we coached, is that the leaders would invite the team to do this exercise on a recurring base. So when you do that on a weekly or quarterly or monthly, or it doesn't really matter, but like on a recurring pace, and then you stay ahead of the potential buildup of conflict, and you bring out everything. Like cleaning up the house. You don't need to wait like for 3 months to everything to pile up. But if you like clean up the house weekly, you don't have to get there. You don't have to have a mountain of dirt or clothes or stuff lying around. It's the same thing. So this is something that might help leaders, do better in terms of managing conflict by staying ahead of it. So now going back to the coin, now that you mentioned, I would like maybe to explain why coin, and it's because it's a measure of value of your team, if you will, like the way the team perceives themselves. For you as a leader is a measure of value of your team. So that's why we said coin, but also because it's from Team Coherence Index. And coherence is maybe the most comprehensive term for how the team should work. And I know I mentioned this in previous episodes, but I love this metaphor. So, and I believe that the most coherent team possible is an orchestra, is a symphonic orchestra. So it's when you look at the tens of people working together and putting up like an amazing sound and energy that it makes you shiver and get into a trance, even some music. That is the most coherent team I could ever name. So coherence is when all the team members are working interdependently in harmony and towards superordinate goals, and not for their own egos and power plays, but for putting up a symphony. That's what every leader should aim for. And what Team Coin does is, at the start or even on your way to make your team better performing, you need to have like a snapshot and gauge all the time where you are. So as we mentioned, there are many individual tools for assessing team members individually, but there isn't too many options for having an overarching snapshot or X-rays, how I like to call it, for how the team itself sees the 5 pillars that we are assessing with the team coin. So this is very useful. You can use it just even if we don't coach teams for particular organizations. They use our tool to see themselves in a very holistic way.
And guys, I just typed in, you can see on the screen the link towards the description of our team assessment tool. Reach out to us if you need any further details about that. Have your HR people or your people's people reach out to us and we can talk about that. We know how important it is to have a team assessment tool, so we can help you with that. So that was it from us for today, guys. Thank you for tuning in. We talked about how to manage conflict in teams. We both hope that you found this information valuable for you and for moving your team further through conflict. If you're not following us, make sure to follow us. Click the subscribe button if you're watching us on YouTube. Reach out to us either here on LinkedIn or here on YouTube. Stay safe, stay healthy. Wishing you a wonderful rest of your week and see you next week with a new episode.
Thank you, everyone, and stay coherent.